But basically, we have two GOP governors, as far as I'm concerned, that are engaging in some form of human trafficking. We had two planes that originated from San Antonio, Texas. They made a pit stop in Florida, and then they made two other pit stops. The first train stopped in South Carolina, the second stopped in North Carolina, and then they both went on to Martha's Vineyard. This is part of a program that Ron DeSantis has put in place. Florida legislator appropriated $12 million to fund this program. And basically the idea is they're going to be sending illegal immigrants to what they are calling sanctuary states and cities. As far as I'm concerned, though, this is human trafficking. They're claiming this is perfectly legal under federal law. I find that they might be pushing that, in my opinion, and it's certainly not moral or ethical. It's kind of disgusting that they are basically using these people as pawns for a political theater game. We should note that Ron DeSantis had a videographer on one of the flights who was filming the whole thing. So I'm sure that there's going to be video to come that he's going to be using in his campaign videos and whatnot. Ron, what are your thoughts on this? Because I'm pretty disgusted.
I mean, how could you not be? Let's call this what it really is. This is a political move, and it is a very disgusting one at that. This is a total political move. It's steeped in cruelty. This is not even just like some policy dispute. This is just a cruel behavior. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to just basically, like you said, use these people as pawns. I think it's even worse than that, because it's not like it's very abusive. Like these people, you know, like most of them do not really know much English, and no one's really telling them what's going on. I think in some cases they had high school students who are taking Spanish act as the translators. So imagine you come to a place which, let's be honest, folks, we are not the shiny beacon on the hill. We never frickin' were, but it's gotten even worse now. The people who come here from other countries, they're coming here because they're absolutely desperate. In most cases, they're either crushed by our sanctions or our economic policies, or they're climate refugees. And guess what? Their country isn't the main culprit of the damage. Countries like ours are. So they're not coming here because we're some beacon on a hill. They're coming here because they have no other choice. I'm sure they wish they had a better option. Mm-hmm. And this is what we do. We use them as pawns in a cruel political football game to send them to these sanctuary cities, because what they want to do is they want people in Massachusetts to be like, oh, we'll help you, we'll welcome you. And then they're going to laugh at them like, oh, look at them. They're helping these people and it's ruining things because, of course, all of our problems are caused by undocumented people who are just coming here to try to get a chance because they have no other option. That's the problem. And I mean, it is truly imagine being treated like that if you were in a different country. Just imagine being treated that way. You don't know the language. They just ship you in a plane. You don't know where you're going. I mean, if you were an American, like if it was me and I was in the middle of Texas and they said, hey, we're getting you a free flight to Martha's Vineyard, I'd probably be like, thanks. No offense to all my Texas friends. Texas is a wonderful place. There's lots of wonderful cities. But this is not that situation. These are people who have no clue what's going on. They're trying to figure things out. They might have families. And you're just putting them on these planes and taking them around. If other countries did this, we would be screaming at the top of our lungs, calling it a crime against humanity and using it as an excuse to invade them, especially if they have some of that oil we like so much. But when we do it, it's just politics. It's just politics. And I don't know. I feel like somebody on this show has been saying Ron DeSantis is the most dangerous person in American politics. I don't know who it is, but I would contend that is an accurate statement, because this is what he's doing just as governor of Florida.
Right. No, it's pretty scary. As far as Martha Stewart as a location that was chosen, Martha's
Somebody please clip this out. That's amazing. Somebody please make something of this.
That was good.
Somebody think of me, Tina holding a Mai Tai or some kind of drink, and it's just like, Tina, live from Martha Stewart, Massachusetts. Oh, that's perfect.
Martha's Vineyard. That's so funny. Freudian slip there. Well, I had in my brain that this is where the wealthy elites go on vacation, especially if they're from New York. So no doubt Martha Stewart vacations on Martha's Vineyard. But why do you think that that was chosen as a location? I have my thoughts that perhaps it is because DeSantis and several other of the GOP members view Martha's Vineyard as like I just said, a vacation home for the wealthy elite. So we're going to dump these folks into your, rich, wealthy, liberal backyard and show you, we're going to own you. You're going to see how awful it is. And that actually might end up, sort of backfiring, because I do think a lot of the folks that live in these areas want to help the migrants. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I certainly can't speak for the people who have homes in Martha's Vineyard. I have no clue one way or another. I mean, I'm not one of them, no. I think it's more like it's Massachusetts, and that is one of the states that, comparatively speaking, has a more, I feel weird using the word welcoming, because I don't think it's fair to say that any state is welcoming, but I would go as far as to say less severe compared to other places. That being said, look, nowhere in the United States is anywhere resembling good. And we're certainly not, I mean, even, Massachusetts, which is considered one of the more left-leaning places in the country, and Provincetown, which is, considered to be like a very open-minded place. And in some ways it certainly is. And I always have a wonderful time when I go there, don't get me wrong. But dude, that is neoliberalism turned up to freaking 11. They exploit most of the people working in the summer that they come there. I mean, it is not, some big lefty.
No, it's not.
It's nowhere close to that. Compared to a lot of other places, is it better here? Yeah. But no, it's still very much a neoliberal hellscape. They, workers are very much exploited up there.
Right.
My wife grew up in that area, so I know a thing or two about it. And yeah.
No,
so
I know you do. That's why I asked. But Ron, let me ask you this, though. I agree with you. It's not a lefty haven. It is very much a neoliberal, wealthy neighborhood.
Well, let me add one other quick thing I would add to that too. I think in some ways, and I'm no fan of this guy either, but I think in some ways it also could be like a little subtle dunk on Obama.
Oh, I don't disagree, and we can talk about that.
And I'm no Obama fan, but like it's just kind of partisan hackery, and so they're just kind of dunking on.
That's exactly it. It's partisan hackery. This is the viewpoint of the GOP or the right-wing extremists, right? So they don't understand the difference between a neoliberal Democrat and a leftist, right? That there is no difference in their mind. So that nuance doesn't exist. So in their mind, they're owning the libs right now. And, we might have our disagreements with a lot of the Democratic Party, lines that they take. We obviously criticize them a lot. But that nuance is missing when it comes from the GOP, because they simply don't differentiate between somebody that's on the left and somebody that's a neoliberal, right? They're all communists.
And I feel like that goes like across the board too. It's not just like the GOP elite that does that. It's like the entire kind of right sphere. Not everybody, but a lot. And that is really annoying to me. And I've even had this conversation with some people where like I've been on panels where like I'm the only lefty and everyone else is kind of more right leaning. And I've just been like, look, it's so frustrating that you guys lump me and Nancy Pelosi in the same vein. Meanwhile, like I differentiate the difference between, like a GOP lackey.
Populist. Yeah.
And well, I mean, yeah, that's not really a thing, but I know what you mean. But I recognize the difference between a classical conservative and a libertarian and like a GOP elite. Like I recognize the difference between all those things. I still disagree with all of them on almost everything, but I recognize the difference. Meanwhile, we're not given 100%. The same courtesy. Like again, not everybody. There's some people out there like on the Twitters and the YouTubes that they do, note the difference between an actual leftist and like the Democratic establishment. But I feel like more often than not that they don't give us that same courtesy.
So we do have a video where U.S. Rep. Keating, who represents not Martha Stewart, Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard is a place. Martha Stewart is a person. The news, ladies and gentlemen, we got this.
Let's play that video so we can hear what he has to say about the situation.
We contacted the governor's office because they do have the resources and the agencies to support dealing with these issues. And we had a great response from the governor's office and Secretary Sutters. MEMA was, which is the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, as you know, Ted, was put into play. And we saw them spring to action. And actually, it's quite a contrast. You had a Republican governor from Florida and a governor here who was also a Republican. And it was like the tale of two governors. One using public resources rather extravagantly. Evidently, maybe I heard on the Vineyard that they were telling me he sent his own video photographer to get all this, and so he could use it for his own advantage. And then his paid for political spokesperson was immediately taking credit, if you want to call it credit, for doing something that was clearly a political stunt. Not even an original one, by the way. You and I might remember about a year ago, I think we were talking about Ted Cruz, another political aspirant, was talking about doing the same thing in the Vineyard. And
did he call Ted Cruz a political aspirin?
Yeah.
Is that what he
Aspirin,
said?
I think he said.
Oh, I thought he said, and I was just like, that sounds really funny, but I also don't like it because aspirin
Sounds a little
does.
too on the nose.
Yeah, well, aspirin helps solve a problem, which Ted Cruz has never done in his
fair.
corporate life.
No,
But that's
he has
still
never
very
done that
funny
in his life.
sounding.
It is very funny sounding. So NPR also had a report that came out this morning, and they actually spoke with a couple of the migrants there in Martha's Vineyard. I wanted to pull that up just so we can get that viewpoint, since these folks were actually able to go there and speak to these individuals that are there. Let's pull up that article. Migrants on Martha's Vineyard flight say they were told they were going to Boston. Right off the top, I find that to be very interesting, that they were told they were going to Boston, yet they ended up at Martha's Vineyard.
Well, did they fly into Boston first? They might have.
No, I don't think so. Not according
They
to.
didn't even. Okay. I thought,
So
well, maybe
my
they did
understanding
get
of the
there.
flight pattern was that the two flights originated out of San Antonio.
Right.
Both went to Florida, and then they had two different layovers, one in North Carolina, one in South Carolina, and that they both ultimately ended up on Martha's Vineyard. So
Gotcha.
now, whether that was also supposed to be a layaway and that they were supposed to go on to Boston, I guess that's not really clear at this point. We're probably going to be hearing more about the story later in the week. And I doubt that this is going to be the only time that Ron DeSantis and Governor Abbott pull this. I think they're both probably talking to each other about how to do more of these things, because they're both going to use this as a, like we said at the beginning of the live stream, a political pawn of sorts. Anyway,
what a horrible way to spend a life.
Yeah.
I mean, what a terrible. I mean, these are elected legislators, and this is what they do. I mean, and I know that, like, as people who live in the United States, it's just Thursday for us. But holy shit. I mean, take a step back and realize how gross this is. What did your governors do today? Oh, they abused people. They just abused people, messed with their heads, sent them on this plane, didn't tell them where they were going, shuffled them around to try to get some political dunks because they think that all of our problems are the result of some of the most powerless people in the world who are just coming here because they're absolutely desperate.
Right.
I mean,
and this is what they're doing instead of actually helping their constituents, I might add. It's red meat for a certain portion of the Republican voter base. It is red meat. But the reality is that these folks are being told to blame their miserable outcomes on the migrants, right? What's really at issue here is the income inequality in the country. It's the fact that the legislation is bought and paid for by wealthy elites. And it's not just the Republicans, it's the Democrats too. And we've had a withering away of, just a quality of life in the country because people are making less money and they're working longer hours and good jobs have disappeared. That's not, a crazy statement. This is just the way things have been going for decades now. And, the left doesn't provide what I call a left exit to the income inequality. And what we end up with is guys like Abbott and DeSantis basically saying, blame the migrants. Right. It's their fault. They're stealing your job.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.